Honen's Life and Teaching. Chapter 46. Honen's Disciples, Part 4. 1. Shokobo Bencho. Shokobo Bencho or Bena, a priest of the Chinsei district, was born in the village of Katsuki in the province of Chikuzen, and began the study of the Tendai doctrines in his 14th year. It was in the spring of the second year of Juei, 1183, when he was 22 years of age, that he entered the Enryakuji temple on Mount Hiei, and was educated under the private tuition of Kwanai, a priest who held the rank of Hakyo, and had his quarters in the southern part of the eastern section of the mountain. Later he became a disciple of Shoshin, a priest who held the rank of Honen, and was abbot of the Hochibo temple, mastering the mysteries of Tendai doctrine. When in the first year of Kenkyu, 1190, he was 29 years of age, he returned to his native province, and was made the head teacher in a temple called Yuzan. In his 32nd year, he was deeply impressed with the impermanence of all earthly things, and had awakened within him an aspiration after the highest enlightenment. So he gave up all his ambitions for worldly objects, and began to seek for those things which would make for his lasting good.
2. He visits Honen. In the 8th year of Kenkyu, 1197, he paid a visit to Honen in his secluded quarters at Yoshimizu, Honen being 65, and he himself 36 years of age at the time. As he went he was thinking to himself that however learned and eloquent Honen might be, he could not be more so than himself. So he put some difficult questions to Honen on some of the fundamental doctrines of the Jodo. In his reply Honen said, "Seeing that you are a Tendai scholar, I think I should talk to you about the three kinds of Nembutsu, and try to explain them to you, the first as it is expounded in the Amohochi Kwan, the second in the Ojoyoshu, and the third as it was propounded by Zendo." Whereupon Honen went into a detailed exposition of all three. As he listened, Chicobo was wonderfully impressed with Honen's marvelous familiarity with the literature of the subject, and his profound insight into the principles involved. Honen soared above himself like the Kunlun mountains, and Chicobo felt as if he were looking down into the depths of the ocean. From the hour of the goat, 2 p.m., to the hour of the rat, 12 p.m., as the exposition went on Chicobo gradually laid aside his self-complacency in his profound regard for Honen. He made up his mind that the only direct way to deliverance for common mortals was without doubt that of the Nembutsu inculcated by the Jodo, and so ever after he looked up to Honen as his master, and could hardly tear himself away from his side, until he became thoroughly versed in all the doctrines of the sect. 3. Honen's attachment to Chicobo. In the spring of the following year, that is in the 9th year of Kenkyu, 1198, he presented Chicobo with a copy of his Senchikushu, saying, "This book was compiled by order of the ex-regent Sakinoa, and although it has not yet been published, I entrust you with it, believing that you are a man with the right capacity to preserve it and hand it on to posterity. So please make a copy of it, for the good it will do to coming generations." Chicobo accepted it with profound obeisance and said, "My great master Shakyamuni himself is no other than Honen Shonin." In the 8th month of the same year, Honen asked him to go down to the province of Io, which he did, and countless numbers of people yielded to his exhortations. In the 2nd month of the 10th year of Kenku, 1159, he returned and continued his attendance upon Honen, until the 7th month of the 1st year of Genkyu, 1204. During the whole of those 6 years, he gave himself up to the study of Zendo's commentary almost every minute of his time, until finally the profoundest secrets of the Jodo had taken full possession of his mind, like the water from one vessel flowing completely into another. For, is the Nembutsu only for novices? At last, on completing his studies, he took his leave of Honen at Yoshimizu, and returned to his native province of Chinsei at the beginning of the 8th month in the 1st year of Genkyu, 1204, devoting himself to the dissemination of Jodo principles with such success that he had converts everywhere. At this time there was a certain scholar professing to be a disciple of Honen's who said, "The profoundly mysterious doctrine of the Jodo is one and the same with that of the Tendai doctrine of the absolute identity of the phenomenal and noumenal worlds. There is no doctrine in the Jodo more profound than this, and moreover it is a secret that has come directly from the lips of Honen himself, known as the Kanga Hokai, that is, the diamond of precious precepts. Zendo forbade the practice of the miscellaneous disciplines, and inculcated practice of the Nembutsu, simply for the benefit of novices, but this was by no means his final principle. I declare this to be what Honen has passed on to me. So, with a view to making sure as to the accuracy of this statement, Chicobo, in the 3rd month of the 2nd year of Genkyu, 1205, sent Dodatsubo, one of his disciples, as a messenger to Honen, with a letter stating in detail the points raised, somewhat as follows. When I used to be under your instruction, I remember your saying that the status of Jodo principles among the sects, as interpreted by the Chinese savants, is like that of orchids and chrysanthemums in the world of flowers, and according to Zendo, the essential principle of the Jodo is that the one right way to attain birth into the land of bliss, as laid down in the original vow of Amida Buddha, is by the right practice of the Nembutsu. But I never heard you say anything like this, that you are now reported to have said. Can it be that this is due to the immaturity of my understanding, that I was not yet able to take in such advanced instruction? Anyway, in order to put an end as soon as possible to such confusion of thought as now prevails among us here, and to preserve the Nembutsu intact for future generation, I should like to be able to establish this sole practice of Nembutsu on some secure basis by getting definite assurance from you on these points, while you are yet in the land of the living. Whereupon Honen with his own hand wrote on the blank space left in the letter the following reply: these two things are utterly absurd. I never said such a thing as this. I asseverate by the sacred name of Shakyamuni and Amida that I never said the like. This autograph oath of Honen serves as a guide for all time to all who practice the Nembutsu. We have this document now with us still, so who can be in doubt? His principle, as thus transmitted to us, is fully worthy of our credence. 5. A book against heresy. In the winter of the 2nd year of Antii, 1228, Chicobo held a special service in the Ojoin temple in the province of Higo for the practice of the Nembutsu for 48 days, during which time he wrote a booklet called Matsudai Nembutsa Jushin, the Nembutsa doctrine certified and sealed by my own hand for future generations, the object of which was to prevent the spread of heretical opinions. It contained a full account of what he had heard directly from Honen's lips. On his completion of the work, the great Zendo appeared before his very eyes in the temple, manifestly for the purpose of giving his approval to what had been written. Chicobo, on beholding the sight, was sure that he had secured Zendo's imprimatur upon the work, and his tears flowed freely.
6. The plot to expel the Nembutsu from Mount Korra. At the foot of Mount Korra in the province of Chicogo, there was a temple called Kiriatara, in which was enshrined an image of Amida Buddha 16 feet high. In this temple Shokobo practiced the Nembutsu for 1,000 days, and on the 800th day, the priests of the temple held a council, at which they reached the following decision. This temple is sacred to the mystic practice, and to meditation, and so it is not right for the sole practice of the Nembutsu to be indulged in at the foot of our mountain. We must drive it away. Thus they all pledged themselves to carry out their resolution the following morning. When the Nembutsu party heard about it, they were preparing to take their departure suddenly from the mountain, but Shokobo said, "You may do as you like, but I am not going to leave." This led them to give up the idea, and they decided to wait till the fellows actually came to drive them out, when, to their astonishment, all the priests of the temple came in a crowd bearing offerings in their hands, and saying, "Yesterday, we made a plot to drive out the Nembutsu from this mountain. But during the night we all had a remarkable dream, in which we saw a brilliant light coming forth from the western horizon, and shining upon the temple. As we were wondering at the sight, a man stood at our side and said, 'It is because the priest Shoko keeps practicing the Nembutsu that the Buddha sends forth his light, and is always illuminating the place.' We all had the very same dream together, and this is why we have now come to show our repentance for our wrong, and make confession before you." It is said that from that time on, there was a great increase in the faith of all 4 classes of devotees connected with the temple. 7. Chicobo builds the Zendoji temple. This same Chicobo built a temple called Zendoji in the province of Yamamoto, in the province of Chikugo, but the name of later changed to Kamioji. In this temple he preserved intact the doctrines he had received from Honen, and continued the propagation of the Nembutsu Ojo cult without intermission, all the rest of his life. From the time he joined the Jodo sect, he used to read the Amida Sutra over 6 times every day, and never failed to observe the prayer and praise services appointed for the 6 periods in every 24 hours, nor did he ever any day neglect the 60,000 Nembutsu repetitions. The only time he stopped for a nap was the 2 hours following the service at the first watch of the night. Then he would get up and keep saying the Nembutsu in a loud voice right on until daybreak. He used to say people maintain that the best place for a life of retirement is the Kakuwa Temple or Mount Korra, but as for me, there is none to compare with the bad from which I arise every morning. Again, another saying of his was, the thing most essential to awaken and maintain a genuine faith is always to be thinking of death and the Buddhas. Who knows whether death may not come after any breath we draw, and so, we should ever keep saying, Helpo Amida Buddha, Namo Amida Butsu. 8. The many good omens at Chicobo's Nirvana. Chicobo was taken ill on the 10th month of the 3rd year of KDI, 1237, and on the 15th of the 1st month of the following year, at the hour of the sheep, 2 p.m., he called his disciples to his bedside, and had them chant him of Buddha's welcome to paradise, and at the same time repeat the Nembutsu. He listened to them with tears of joy, exclaiming, "The holy ones from the blissful land fill the skies." All who heard were deeply moved. At the hour of the dragon, 8 a.m., on the 23rd of the same month, he told his disciples that an incarnation of the Amida Buddha had appeared to him. At the hour of the ox, 2 a.m., on the 28th of the 2nd month, delightful perfumes filled the air, and at the hour of the sheep, 2 a.m., on the 29th, he put on the 7-stripped kesa, lay down with his head to the north and his face to the west, placing a fine colored banner at his side. He had long ago written out a copy of the Amida Sutra, bowing low 3 times at the writing of each and every character. Now, as was his usual custom, he held this sutra between his thumbs and forefingers, with his hands folded in worship, and went on for 2 hours repeating the Nembutsu, his voice getting louder and louder towards the end. As he was reciting the passage, the Buddha's light illumines all sentient beings in the 10 quarters of the word. Before he could go any farther, like one dropping off to sleep, he passed into Nirvana. He was just 77, and it was just 64 years from the time he had entered the priesthood. At the end came, a 5-colored cloud overspread the sky, and another purple one in a diagonal direction hung over his home. Many were the crowds of priests and laymen who gathered to behold the wonderful sight. For 3 days after his decease, many saw purple clouds covering the main building of the Tempakuji Temple, in the district of Kazuma, his old home. Besides, at the very hour of his death, still another company some distance away were astonished at the sight of purple clouds, and hastened to his bedside to see him enter Nirvana. There was a servant in the Kasano family, who dreamed that he saw a priest with a copy of the Amida Sutra in his hand, in which the letters were written with gold dust. He was conducting the service that typifies Amida's welcome to the land of bliss. On waking he was told that Shonin had died. He at once hastened to the spot, and to his inexpressible joy, learned that Chicobo had happily passed away as he had seen in his dream. He also found that Chicobo had many good omens during his lifetime, as well as these wonderful phenomena attending his death. Sometimes he had seen Zendo, sometimes the Buddha Amida himself, sometimes beautiful scenes of holy personages from the land of bliss had opened on his sight, and even the glorious body of Shakyamuni himself had shed its light upon his person. Kairenja, a disciple of Shokobo, dreamt that his master was Zendo come to life again, and another man also dreamt that he was an incarnation of Amida. There were so many wonders connected with his life that I cannot recount them all here. 9. Shikobo's Shugyaman. Chicobo says in that work called Nembutsu Ojo Shugyaman, the practice of the Nembutsu as the way to Ojo, it is regrettable that people who claim to be followers of Honan should be circulating reports that he taught certain things which he never taught at all. The fact is that he told Chicobo that the soul of Zendo's teaching is this: everyone aspiring after the Pure Land must say the Nembutsu, preserving the well-known threefold mental attitude, namely first, a determination with a most sincere heart to attain Ojo, secondly, the certainty a deep believing heart has that, though a wretched sinner doomed to the fated round of transmigration, I can, as mercifully provided in Amida's original vow, be saved by nothing else than calling upon the sacred name, and thirdly, having a longing heart that years after the land of bliss, and makes this the sole reason of calling upon the sacred name. This is the doctrine of the threefold mental attitude which has been handed down directly from Honen Shonin, and nothing else is essentially required. He also used to say that laymen, who are without the necessary leisure, may repeat the Nembutsa 10 or 20,000 times a day, while priests and nuns, in proof of their having changed their mode of life, should do it 30 or 60,000 times a day. In fact, he said it is not possible to do it too often. When one is convinced that the Nembutsu is the discipline for the certain attainment of Ojo, the threefold mental state required will of itself arise within him, and he will be sure of attaining it. If then I should say that Honen has taught a thing which he never taught at all, I should forfeit the goodwill and compassion of all the Buddhas of the past, present and future, all the Bodhisattvas in the 10 quarters, and above all the sainted spirits of Shaka, Amida Kwannon, Seishi and Zendo, in whom we specially trust. I should lose the protection of Brahma and Sakra, those guardian deities of the Nembutsu, and become a castaway in this world and in the world to come. Thus he took his oath that his is exactly what Honen said, and his Ojo, in the midst of remarkable prodigies, proves that the practical issue agrees well with the doctrine. Who then can help believing as he says? 10. Chicobo alone true to Honen's teaching. Now Chicobo once said that Chicobo of Chinzei was the only one of Honen's disciples who had passed on to us with perfect accuracy Honen's doctrine of the Nembutsu. The following is a letter he wrote Chicobo on the 21st of the 9th month in the 3rd year of KDI, 1237. It is many years since we last met, and it indeed pains me now that there is small hope of my ever again seeing you in the flesh. What a pity that, in contrast to our late master's teaching, the Nembutsu doctrine nowadays is in a state of such utter confusion. I am delighted beyond measure to hear that you are the one man who preserves his teaching just as he stated it himself. We are both of us sure of Ojo, and I hope that whichever of us attains it first will be waiting over there to welcome the other to the land of bliss. I take this opportunity of writing you, and shall look forward to the day when you will favor me with a reply. I have indeed many things I should like to tell you, but time and space forbid. 11. Chicobo's views generally accepted. After this, during the Bunei period, 1264 to 1274, Chicobo's successor, Nambutsa, and Chicobo's successor, Chicobo, held a preaching service for 48 days at Akatsuchi on the eastern mountain of Kyoto, in which Nambutsa acted as chairman. He summed up the two Jodo views, showing that they were essentially the same. Then Chicobo said, there is entire agreement between Wheat Chicobo and Chicobo say in their ordinary teaching. So my disciples should hereafter regard the Chinzei teaching as their own. There is no need whatever for them to set up another school. This I understand is the reason why the school of Chicobo united with that of Chinzei, and did not form another section. Moreover, Hoin Saikaku, the abbot of the Agui temple, as well as Shoshimbo, the abbot of the Nisoin temple, both maintain that their doctrine was correct, because it was Chicobo taught. What is now called the Tsukushi is doctrine held by the school of Chicobo, because his home was in the province of Tsukushi,